Today, we're sputtering out sentence fragments and lighting things on fire as we look at Tommy Boy. Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Hold Up, the podcast where we dive deep into your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out, and see if they truly and possibly will hold up. I'm Hold Up today with Kyle and Andrew.
Hey.
What's going on?
The tension was palpable. That was good.
That was waiting you to seize the moment.
I always seize the carpe diem. I'll always go first.
You do, Daddy.
Thanks.
I have the past few weeks said your name first.
Yeah,
You have.
I was waiting for you to take the lead there, just because
I know you. I know.
I'm a follower.
You are sheep.
Yeah,
You are sheep.
Yep.
And I am your shepherd. Damn right.
Well, Kyle, describe your energy level for us today.
So, energy level today, when you're sleeping at night and your 80-pound German shepherd has decided to lay his head on the pillow next to you, like he's a person sleeping, and he just looks at you and goes, That's the energy today. It's, it's cute, but I didn't need it.
it sounded cute.
I was going to say that's one of your best energy level.
It's getting up there. We're climbing the ladder. We're getting there.
A very tall 16-foot ladder.
Yeah, with nobody spotting. And it's a lean-to. It's not even a tent ladder.
About to fall off putting the Christmas lights on.
Hey. Nice.
We'll
Good
get there
reference.
one day. Yeah. Today we watched Tommy Boy.
I did watch it today, actually.
No.
What time? This morning?
No, this mid-morning. I was sleeping for a long time. So that was good, but then I popped it on my phone.
Finally got you to
was
text
studying.
us back, too. That was fun. I appreciated that.
I had time to text you back because I wasn't coaching a class.
Because he was watching Tommy Boy.
No, I keep that time religiously separated.
Tommy
Sure.
Boy time.
Tommy Boy time.
This is a big one from my past because I remember we watched this one a lot growing up. We had this one on Hold For It Kids DVD.
Yeah.
Oh.
This was one of the first DVDs we had when we started transitioning over from the old VHS player that kicked the bucket. This was one we'd watched a lot on TV. Our parents let us watch this one censored, obviously. Although,
Even though it's not that bad.
really
It's not
not.
that bad.
No.
It's a more mild adult movie, but it has some
What's it rated?
themes.
PG-13?
yeah, I mean, it has to
Maybe.
be. Yeah, it has to be, yeah. But I remember watching a lot. My dad loved this one specifically. He would quote it left and right. This was another Christmas Vacation to him. He quotes Christmas Vacation a lot, and we had a lot of fun quoting it at school, too.
Absolutely. If I heard Schnikes one more time, I would probably throw up.
Holy shnikes.
Or, you always had the heavier set friend that would always grab your jacket and put it on and do the fat guy in a little coat thing.
Yeah. That was just, it was barely funny in the movie. And then we do it in real life, and it becomes less funny every time somebody does it.
I don't know. As kids, we were having a blast with it.
I was talking about farts. That was about it. That was about the only thing that got the engine revving.
Starring Chris Farley and David Spade, the ever-loving duo from Saturday Night Live, taking over this one.
Best
but
friends forever.
Best friends forever.
You can tell, though. You can tell that they're BFFs. I just wish they would have let them go off script a little bit more, because you can tell when they go off script, and it's much funnier, than the scripted stuff.
They didn't have the leeway that Will Ferrell has. And
a lot of the things that he made was with Adam McKay, who was writing on Saturday Night Live with him.
Adam McKay was I don't want to say Will Ferrell's not a genius, because he isn't in his own
No,
right.
he's
Adam
very
McKay
good.
is literally the brains behind it all.
But the reason why those movies, why they're not as good separate, is because together their movies are so good, because they work together for so long. And they definitely have a working attitude of, here's a skeleton script and I'm going to yell out things for you to say here.
He knows how Will's brain works.
Yeah.
And he can trigger things that others
And that's
can't.
a very real, as a performer and an entertainer, that's a very real thing. There's a reason why certain people work together. It's just a thing.
Andrew, what do you remember about this movie when you were a kid?
I remember watching it at my grandparents' home in freaking Nebraska back in the late 90s. And so that in itself has a strong childhood draw, sitting in their guest room watching it with my aunt, who knew Chris Farley personally.
Oh, wow.
I know you wanted to talk about this when we got into it, but I feel like this is perfect. My aunt went to college with Chris Farley at Marquette, of all places. So when I watched it with her, she hated him and she hated it. She despised him.
Why did she despise him?
Because what you see in Chris Farley, like all the, oh God, and the physical actions and the overreacting, that was him in real life, she said. He craved attention at all times. He would do anything to get a laugh or for anyone to look at him. I remember sitting on the couch with her, and she's like, I can't stand this. This is him in real life. It's just him, just seeking attention and exonerate. Like I don't know, just that moment of her expressing her disdain for everything that he did and does. I don't know, it just resonates with me. It's not something that rubbed off, but just her visceral anger for him is something I could never remove from my brain.
And she must have hated her life at that time because he was everywhere.
He was like the name in comedy at that point. He was like Will Ferrell before Will Ferrell. Or he was even, I wouldn't say he rivaled Jim Carrey, but he was getting
You can
close.
tell that he was definitely trying to go for Jim
Carrey.
Carrey-esque kind of thing. Whether intentional or not, you can definitely tell that he had there were some moments in that movie that I was like, that was Jim Carrey.
You were trying to accomplish what Jim Carrey does.
But did
can't.
not.
But even Robin Williams' early comedy was very practical, very animated. Robin Williams did a lot of animated comedy early, and I felt like that this took some liberties from that. I think at this point, because we're talking about it with Andrew, we have to talk about SNL. SNL comedians, like that goes way back.
They do well commercially since the beginning of the show. Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd,
Belushi.
John Belushi,
There's
Chris
others.
Kattan.
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, Christ, the list goes on.
There's a lot.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, yes.
As recent as Bill Hader, Kristen Wiig. We could do this all day. Jason Sudeikis. Like, there's
Bill Forte, like all of them.
the comedic writers and the comedians and the actors and whomever on those shows commercially always, for the most part, have the opportunity to do well, it seems. And you can tell that it was interesting. You could tell that they worked together in SNL, but you could definitely tell, and you'll be able to tell me at the end, but I'd be surprised if I was wrong with this, that it was not made by a crew that was SNL, like, backed, because their comedy, when they were together and they were doing their own thing, the riffing was so much different than the other stuff that was written for them.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. And it shows, like, how SNL is just an amazing stepping stone. If you're a comedian and you get into SNL, you can ride that wave into bigger and better things. That is a legendary circle of people coming out of it.
Especially if you are actually talented and funny.
Yes.
Yep.
And all these people that we mentioned are, and I think Chris Farley is as well. We'll dive into the movie and we'll talk about some of his humor here. But as far as him on SNL, my family loved SNL at the time.
It was a good time for SNL back then.
It was a good time. My parents still claim the 80s were the golden years of SNL. But
I would say that early to mid 2000s was
Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader. That time period is the best.
I would agree 100%, but I think that is too, like, generational thing.
Definitely.
I mean, it's hard to argue with them too because you got Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy's coming on.
That's right.
So it's hard to argue those names too. But my parents loved SNL. My dad loved Chris Farley on SNL. We replay the Matt Foley skits when they come around.
One of the greatest.
Yeah, but it's also referenced in this movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, not that, but there's a couple of his characters that were referenced. But.
Yeah. He kind of carries it over. Chris Farley's not the most Swiss Army knife of a comedian.
Yeah. A little one-dimensional, if you will.
But I do love his energy, and I think he does end up getting the laugh. And he will commit to a bit until you laugh at it. I don't know if that's like a pity laugh or what. But
for being a big guy that he has some phenomenal physical comedy.
Super athletic, too.
Super athletic.
When he's sprinting in the beginning of that movie, I remember I was like, dang young. He's going, and he looks good, too. He doesn't have, he looks like a good
He's a big dude, but I look at someone like that, I'm like, oh, I don't think like, oh, he's fat. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's big, but he's
a big
not.
guy.
Yeah,
he's like offensive lineman
athletic,
skilled.
yeah. Surprisingly nimble.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned the way he is from your aunt. I think this is a good way to segue into this.
For sure.
Before we get going on the movie itself, because this is the height of his career and also probably the turn into the downfall.
He passed
There's
not too long after that.
yes,
Years.
that's not
even.
and his career didn't last that long. I was watching this documentary series, which I highly recommend to anybody. It's called Dark Side of Comedy. It's done by Vice. I think you can even watch it on YouTube now. I don't think you have to go to a platform and see it, but if so, I think it's on Hulu. But I watched the episode on Chris Farley, and they mentioned him growing up. The whole family talked about Chris being self-conscious about his weight,
Yes.
but he knew him being overweight was funny to people. So he played into that, and that was his biggest drawback too, personally. They talked in detail about his spiral into using drugs and alcohol to cope with the fact that, hey, people only think I'm funny because I'm fat. And that really led him to a lot of depression. And then he started overcompensating by trying so hard to make people laugh because he felt so empty inside. And that whole documentary got me.
I talked about my aunt knowing him. I don't think that emptiness was ever not a part of him. I think when he was younger, he was always trying to act out, always trying to overcompensate for something. Yeah. I don't know where the self-hatred exactly originated from, but it's always been there with that guy. And it bleeds into his act and his shtick and what he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Chris Farley. I don't by no means think he's the best comedian out there, but like I have a soft spot for him because as we were growing up, he was a huge comedian. So you saw him everywhere. You turn on Billy Madison with Adam Sandler, there he is as the school bus driver. We have Black Sheep, Tommy Boy playing all the time on TV.
He's a part of some of the greatest sketches in comedy history in SNL. Like, I mean, we talk about the Van Down by the River sketch, but the Bears sketch, Da Bears, those are like legendary.
What was the sketch that they were doing where they were playing him? I think it was him, Spade, and Adam Sandler, and they were playing teenage girls.
Oh,
at the
they
mall.
were like in a dollhouse or whatever.
Yeah. That was such a fucking
What's
great
the one?
sketch.
I remember the one where he's like the Chippendale dancer with Patrick Swayze. Oh,
Classic.
phenomenal.
Legendary.
Phenomenal physical comedy.
That's where I was like, holy
shit,
this dude is athletic. Because he can move, man.
And I'm pretty sure he played football back in the day, too.
He was definitely big enough to do that.
Yeah. And athletic enough.
Yeah.
But Kyle, what do you remember about Tommy Boy?
It was one I saw on TV. I don't think I ever saw the actual full movie, unless it was like, Little Nicky or
Little Nicky.
Holy
shit.
or Joe Dirt or something like that. The Adam Sandler crew, 50 First Dates. It didn't Big Daddy, yes. Once I saw those and I realized who was in them, my introduction to Chris Farley, I didn't have a whole lot of Chris Farley except for SNL, but at that time it was Adam Sandler, Fred Armisen, that crew's kind of years. And I remember just seeing this on TV, like I think it was on like USA or Comedy Central or something, and pop it on. And it was funny enough to watch on like a Friday night. Definitely didn't think it was like Jim Carrey funny or the movies we just mentioned funny or, anything along those lines. Because that's pretty much who was doing everything back then. That and Chevy Chase, the Vacations and stuff. So like, it was okay.
It seemed, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like there was a brief window of Chris Farley.
Yeah, it was very small. It's like, it happened like, when like one kid would see this, they would all hang out together and watch the movie, and then they come back to school and repeat the lines. And I just remember Holy Shnikes the whole. And I was like, it doesn't sound fun. It's not funny.
I lived in that brief window with Chris Farley and loved him to death. Like I absolutely adored his comedy style. I do see the point. If you miss that window, you've missed that window because Adam Sandler was a longer window. Jim Carrey was a longer window. Like you had more time to like adapt to their
expose their stuff, but his was just so quick.
Yeah, it was like
a flash in the pan.
It feels like there was only 3 movies. It was Tommy Boy, which was probably the better one, and then Black Sheep, which was basically a sequel that wasn't as funny from what I remember. And then you had Beverly Hills Ninja.
Ninja's great.
And he also has this, one of my favorite Chris Farley movies, which I beg we do on the show at some point, but is Almost Heroes with Matthew Perry.
Oh, that's right.
That movie, when I was a kid, made me piss myself. I laughed so hard. I don't know if it's going to do the same thing as an adult.
Probably not.
But I used to love that movie.
Those are like the movies that you're talking about that like I don't think I was exposed much to Chris Farley. It wasn't just for any reason other than it just didn't happen. Yeah. So I don't really remember too much except seeing it on Comedy Central.
I want to say another thing. I remember watching it with my aunt, but I was so young. Like, that was 96, probably when I watched it. I was maybe 4 years old. So, like, the memory of seeing it isn't incredibly strong.
Yeah, and we were all so young.
Way too young.
To go to theaters and see it. So this one is definitely like on TV. Like I said, the first time we owned it, like I loved it so much as a kid that we had it on DVD, and I was older then. Yeah. And I remember seeing the uncut version, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. We get to see the uncensored Tommy Boy. And it was like, that was the same thing. He just said goddamn and shit a little bit more. Like, that's about it.
There's really nothing high stakes.
Yeah. I don't even think they say fuck in the movie.
I don't think so either.
I think it's about time. Andrew, give me those sweet digits.
So you want these box office numbers?
Sing them to me.
Released on March 31st, 1995. A budget of $20 million. Domestic opening.
Whoa! That movie was budgeted at $20 million. Was everything shot on set? Like shot?
No, that's. I was about to. Before we even started talking about this, I was like, I kind of took a glance over at how much it made, and it wasn't a lot. But you have to think like these movies like this are pretty cheap to make for the most part, compared to what we've been talking about.
These aren't high stakes, major sci-fi blockbuster.
They're gonna find a set. They're gonna keep like it looks like they shot it on location in the Midwest.
It was filmed in Toronto and
there you go,
somewhere Chicago, maybe.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely
Chicago.
I guess I was just expecting a bigger budget just because of who. We'll get to it.
They didn't have to go to locate. Like they had a centralized location. It wasn't hard to probably get people
Sandusky, Ohio. I think they filmed in Sandusky, Ohio.
I think they actually did. I don't know. I don't even know if they went to Chicago. If I'm being honest, I think it might have just been like Toronto.
No, that's the skyline of Sandusky. Have you ever been?
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
They had the B-roll shot that they have rolling up on Chicago is real, obviously, because there was here and stuff. But
they send a couple interns to do that one.
Budget of $20 million, domestic opening of $8 million, and then it grossed altogether $33 million.
So they made something.
I think they probably made more in the aftermarket sales of it. Because it became a cult hit.
For sure, because it wasn't really commercially received well.
Yeah.
But it became a huge cult hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody remembers it, too. So we all watched it at some point. And I'm sure the airtime, like those movies that are showing on TNT, I'm sure that it doesn't cost much to, like, air those movies. But airing them over years, I'm sure it made something back off of it. So it was produced by Lorne Michaels. He knows what he's doing.
He sure as hell does.
Awesome. So smart as a whip, you know.
Are we ready?
I guess. Yeah.
All right. So
I think we're ready.
This movie, it opens in the way that you expect a Lorne Michaels SNL sketch to open. It's somebody running.
Some tubby little kid.
Running because they're late for school. Yeah. Which I thought was okay.
It's a little montage of some chubby little 12-year-old running to school, and he jumps through the bushes, drops his history book, makes it out into the road, catches the school bus, and you can see him running behind it, and the kids are like, "Hurry, Tommy! You're gonna make it, Tommy!" And then the smoke from the bus fills up the air, and it fast forward to Tommy
in Marquette.
15, not even 15 years later.
Missing the bus there as well, so he's really just not. He's not getting.
He didn't learn at all. How did he get into Marquette? Is what
his dad.
Paid
them
That's
for
a
his way to
family
school.
thing. I'm pretty sure in real life his entire family went there, which is weird because I feel like this movie, the father and the family dynamic to some degree is exactly kind of how Chris Farley was in real life.
Probably.
I really believe that. They play into the whole dumb, stupid, barely got by, drinks a lot, but here he is.
Yeah.
That's kind of Chris.
He's kind of like a lovable loser.
Yes.
I love right as they're running as kids, the younger version of Richard's biking next to him at the same pace.
Time,
also missed the bus. And who's biking, and he's like, "Late again, Tommy. You're pathetic. You're late too, Richard.
Yeah, there's something special about you.
You're not, and you're pedaling it so slow. You're going to be later. He's running faster than you biking.
Well, he doesn't look as good.
Nope.
Neither one of them looked great. It was either this scrawny ass little nerd or this chubby 12-year-old.
Take your pick. There's one.
Take your pick. Yeah, you can't.
There's no in between.
No in between.
No Venn on that diagram.
He's on his history final at that point.
He gets into, whatever classroom it is. So he tries to open the door, but it's locked. And then he sees someone go into the left side. And he's like, "Oh, silly me. I didn't open the left door."
I started counting how many times he hit doors or went in the wrong door at the beginning.
Or started
it's
yelling.
Quite a few. The same joke.
And he's already sweating, profusely sweating.
Well, they shouldn't have called this Time Boy. They should have called it cocaine. Because I'm pretty sure that was what fueled this movie.
Oh,
But he gets in, his professor rolls his eyes at him, and he sits down, and y'all remember the first question.
What was it?
It was like, who were the framers of the Constitution? It was like Thomas Jefferson, and I don't remember the other name. You could name off a million of the founding fathers. It would fit, and then it was blank Hancock.
Yeah, I was like...
John Hancock.
I wrote in my notes, I was
Might have
like,
been
what
Declaration of
college
Independence,
history final at fucking
Marquette, which is a phenomenal school.
a great school.
It's a private Catholic Jesuit school with academic standards.
That is a history final for this guy to graduate, and the first question on it is blank Hancock. You know that professor was like, fuck it, I'm quitting after this semester.
He did not have a lot of high hopes.
Yeah.
He was administering a 4th grade test to high level.
High level, no college is
What does he
high
put
level.
down as his answer? But Herbie Hancock.
That's great.
Good one.
That made me laugh, though, because it was such a bad joke. I just had to giggle at it. Herbie Hancock, and then he like repeats the line later.
He's like, Herbie Hancock.
They were like in the office or
Yeah.
something like that. I don't remember what the quote
So
was,
he graduates
with a D+.
with a D+. He passes.
No, they don't give those grades out every day,
So as the professor's taping the list of grades on the glass, if you look closely, you see that they've shoehorned in a bunch of historical figures as the students' names.
I did not
I
look
caught
that
2
closely.
of them.
What'd you see?
One of them was Helen Keller. I'm like,
Great.
I was like, why didn't you put like SNL cast members? You could have put like Adam Sandler. You could have done anything, but they were
Bill
like,
Murray could have.
I think Rosa
bigger
Parks
names.
was on there. It was stupid.
Par for the course.
For the eagle eye audience out there.
Wow, we'll put this Easter egg in there. Wow.
So intelligent.
Wow.
Not
Really well
even-
thought
not-
out and well placed joke.
Not even trying at that point. They were just like, hey, quick, intern, we need a list of names. Smokes.
Yeah. Hey, smokes, boys, let's go.
But then he passes, and then they fast forward to like his college house where it's 5 or 6 of his buddies sitting around on the couch, smoking from the bong, throwing back Millers, like bonging beers, and just being degenerates. Which
They weren't degenerates. They were on the rugby team.
That's
So
right.
might as well.
Sorry.
Yours makes no difference.
But little story about my aunt and Chris.
They were on the same rugby team?
Sure.
Go
No,
ahead,
my
baby.
aunt has told me this story many times, and I'm always like, "Are you sure this is true?" It's very true. My aunt and her roommates had a housewarming party back in probably like, I don't know, early 70s or mid 70s, whenever it was. They were there. They're the same age. They were born in the same year, 1964 or 1963, something like that. They had a housewarming party, and Chris shows up, and he's just out of it. That's how he operated. So, like the the scene with him and his rugby brothers, that was him in college. He gets drunk.
That was him in his adult years.
Yes,
dude.
it
That was
never
like-
stopped.
Yeah, it got
But
worse.
At this party, he gets so drunk that he strips naked, gets up on top of their bar in the basement, and just belly flops onto the floor. And I think he hurt himself or something like that, and they had to shut things down and attend to him. But my aunt will never forget that because it ruined their housewarming party. But he did that, and yeah, just a sore spot in her memory of him that's gonna always be linked and always gonna
I'm
be there.
not gonna lie though. If I'm your aunt and I have that story of like,
That's
hey,
kinda cool.
Chris Farley came in, did 3 lines of blow, got naked, and jumped off our bar onto the like hardwood floor. But that's a story I could share for eternity.
Sure, but
It makes sense.
what if Chris Farley never became Chris Farley? You're going to think back and be like, that guy was a fucking loser. God damn. You know what I mean?
but like I'd still share that story.
For
It's like, hey,
sure. And she did share it, but
think about being at like Kyle's housewarming party. And we just get naked and jump off his loft.
but you know
Die.
Kyle.
You would kill yourself.
The thing is, you know Kyle. Kyle knows you. There's going to be someone that you like invited that was like a friend of a friend that showed up that you don't really know. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different.
I don't see the problem.
I mean,
Sounds like a good time to me. Awkward as hell.
You're in college. Like at some point, you have to understand that these things are going to happen.
Yeah, somebody's gonna throw up on your futon. Somebody's gonna bring bed bugs in at some point.
If you still have a futon at this point, it's on you.
he also might
you're
have
asking for
damaged
it.
the bar too. I don't exactly remember.
That's where we go.
but-
That's where we draw the line. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
But anyways, back to the story at hand. You see that he is someone that partakes in substances, which is
He's
Sinner.
he is becoming a lovable loser real fast. He's a D+ student who is late and
7 years late to getting his degree.
7 years
Almost
late.
a decade.
He goes back home to his dad's auto part
Callahan
dealership,
Auto
Callahan
Parts.
Auto.
Which that seems like it's a pretty strong business. They
Yeah,
do well
they have
for
a great
themselves.
logo, great employee benefits there. They have an employee night.
Absolutely.
How many people
But
do they
they get a
employ in the
pension.
town of
Three,
Sandusky?
300 employees too. So,
small.
but he
It's kind of small when you think about it. It's not very big. But
So he lands off a small Cessna that is, I guess, his dad sent for him to pick up. So now he's going to join the family business.
and who does he meet when he gets
He
off the
meets
plane?
his dad's right-hand man, Richard,
Richard.
who's a smug, unhappy little man who treats people like they're idiots.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he has a smug exterior and a really unwelcome interior.
He
just
is
his car.
angry at all times. And I still laugh at this joke. I still think it landed now, where he goes, yeah, a lot of people go to college for 7 years. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Yeah, I did laugh out loud at that one. That was good.
He had a few like really dry quips that that did hit.
They call them doctors.
Yeah. And then he gets his garbage bag full of clothes, and they're off to they immediately...
With bag tags on them as well. It's official.
And then we get introduced to the real star of the show, Richard's car.
Yikes.
So was it 67 GTX?
GTX.
Something, you know, cars,
W,
Kyle.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
is that a nice car?
not anymore.
But at that time for Richard, was
Yeah.
that nice?
Yeah, that was in the 90s. So that car would have been like 20 some years old, or maybe more. I think it was probably late 60s. I mean, it was probably
I think
okay.
it was a 67.
Yeah, it would make sense. So like it was probably almost 30 years old at that point. So that'd be like one of us pulling up in a mint,
94 Corolla.
yeah, like something fun like that, like a Toyota Sienna from 2000.
A Mazda
those.
Miata.
Yeah, Mazda Miata from back in the day, the Porsche 914. Yeah, like really good stuff. Yeah, so to answer your question, it's okay.
It did.
It's just a convertible, I know.
Yeah. It looked good. It looked good. I'd give him that. But
I like the blue. Sure.
And then they're driving through the town of Sandusky, which, Kyle, you're our resident Ohioan. What can you tell us about Sandusky?
You don't need to go there for anything.
Cedar Point.
Yeah, sure. That's great. I bet they got a couple Wendy's and a few Denny's and maybe a Burger King.
Well, they don't have any auto parts stores anymore because they were all shutting down.
Yeah,
in
well,
this
Ohio's the resident state for the Rust Belt. If you're looking to see what something used to be, you can go there and check it out.
Cleveland especially.
Cleveland. I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, we don't want to get you on a tangent about
No,
Cleveland,
no.
so
No, we don't need to talk about that. Sandusky, it's gonna be not a lot happening. Pretty much anything north of Columbus is gonna be pretty dismal. It's very flat. The glaciers receded and they shut. Like everything's just flat as fuck. So
Yeah.
have fun.
and it gets really cold in the winter.
It gets very cold. Not Chicago cold, but close.
I mean, you get lake effect snow because you're right there. Is that Erie or whatever?
Then Erie, and then you're getting shit on by Michigan the whole time. Go Bucks, baby, go Bucks.
So we finally get to Callahan Auto, where his dad's going through this spiel about how Tommy will own the company one day.
What a bad decision.
And
what
what
an
a
awful
horrible
businessman.
decision.
You would think that someone who seems to be as well put together and as smart as Tom Sr. wouldn't just, throw his son into his idiot son who's been in college for...
Idiot son.
Yeah.
Just willingly an idiot.
Yeah.
Willfully refusing to be smart.
Right, and not business savvy at all. There's nothing redeeming about this character, and we're like 5 to 10 minutes into the movie. We meet his dad. His dad's like very business savvy, doesn't seem like a book smart kind of guy.
Very much like a good old boy, but can schmooze up to people.
Can
and is
schmooze,
very good at that.
Schmooze is a good word.
Great salesman.
Yes, sells himself really well. They're working on a new brake pad division that's going to revolutionize the auto parts industry. And they're trying to get a business loan from the bank, and they've maxed out some loans, or I couldn't remember. The conversation was getting muddled. Yeah. But Tommy shows up. He's basically taking his seat.
He's an executive.
The
He's some sort of
executive and waiting. Yeah, but he has
his own office.
He gets his own office. His dad throws brake pad manuals at him and says, "Read these." So his only task at this point is to put drinks in his cooler and read the brake pad manuals.
And then talk funny into the fan.
Quoting Star Wars into a fan. And his dad takes him home, and there's a beautiful woman. Sexy music's playing. She's getting out of the pool, throwing water everywhere. The camera is going from her feet all the way up to her head in slow motion. And then Tommy makes the dumbest quote of the movie when he says, "Is that for me?" Like some sort of package that UPS dropped off. And his dad turns to him and says, "No, son, that's for me."
Well, you can tell that this was written by a woman, not a man.
For sure.
Of course, this is written by a man in the
Passes
90s.
the Bechtel test.
Yeah, for real.
I'm glad-
It's just immediate woman object.
I'm
Done.
glad that we brought this up. Do you know who this movie was written by?
Was it Peter Siegel or whatever his name was?
No.
Who?
It was written by Terry and Bonnie Turner.
Should we know them?
They wrote
Tell us.
they wrote the Brady Bunch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they wrote several big time shows, and they ended up writing That 70s Show after this.
No shit.
way.
They were a very famous script writing duo.
Weird. I bet they were into some weird shit.
Yeah, but that's why this
would've
movie
loved to
that's
know.
why this movie's all up and down, like too, with some of the character work. But because you can tell, like, oh, this scene was written by a man, definitely, and this scene maybe possibly was written by a woman who the man overwrote on, you know. But anyway, we find out that this lady, who Tommy's not heard about, even though he's been at Marquette, his dad could have called him or sent him letters, is marrying his dad
Like the next day.
the next fucking
So, how
day.
convenient
Doesn't tell
for him
anybody.
to get back and then be surprised about a marriage and
Hey, by the way, I know your mother passed away, and this is a woman I'm dating now. I'm marrying this woman tomorrow.
didn't he say that he met her last week or something?
Yeah,
like that
I met her
today?
2 months ago. She was a personal trainer, and she was the only one I didn't want to punch in the face.
No, the only one I didn't want to put 6 feet under a lettuce patch.
Yeah.
Cool.
Neato game.
Great.
So
And this is her son, a man who is older than you and is definitely not romantically involved in this woman.
Paul.
yeah, so Paul shows up.
Rob Lowe. Fucking
Rob
Rob
Lowe.
Lowe.
Rob Lowe,
Who was also very much into cocaine at the time.
yes, absolutely, very
Very
open
much.
about this. Rob Lowe shows up. He is supposed to be Tommy's step brother. Tommy's excited to have a brother, which Rob Lowe went uncredited in this movie. He's not in the credits
Why?
because he was working on Stephen King's The Stand, the TV show at the time, and he couldn't get credited for this movie because he was already contractually obligated to The Stand. So he did this movie as a favor to Chris Farley.
Whoa.
Really?
Yeah.
Were they buddies? Were they friends?
Yeah, they were like Rob Lowe, Chris Farley, and David Spade were really good friends.
I didn't know they were a trio. I knew that David Spade and Chris Farley
Yeah.
and Adam Sandler, they were all close, but I didn't know that
Rob
Lowe
Lowe,
was in that.
Rob Lowe even said in an interview, it took everyone 15 years to realize that he was in the movie. And I was like, really?
Only because he's in it acting.
Yeah.
So what the fuck are you doing? That's bullshit.
He also tells this other story, too. This is just a side story that we're talking about Rob Lowe. Like, him and David Spade went out for drinks, and then an infamous moment between David Spade and Chris Farley happened. So Chris Farley, who we mentioned always wanted attention and be in the center of everything, that was just his personality, got mad that David Spade and Rob Lowe went out for drinks and that he didn't get invited.
That tracks.
He put David Spade through a wall, and David Spade walked out on Tommy Boy briefly before they were able to coax him back in. Lovers
Right
quarrel.
on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love
What
that.
a good story. Two level-headed men figuring out their problems.
They eventually made up, and it worked out for a very mediocre movie. Rob Lowe shows up. He is a quintessential asshole.
He's a little
Yeah.
douchebag.
Not likable in any way, shape, or form. You're
Like,
already. He's a
what does
weasel.
this guy stand for? What's his purpose?
They telegraph the turn really quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
very
like,
quick.
okay, there's more to this. He shows up. They're all the same age. Like the mom, Rob Lowe.
A lot of question
Yeah,
marks.
so-
Well, Rob Lowe, to me, at least appeared quite a bit younger than his mom. I don't know.
Yeah,
If
but
you
like
all
not
thought
that much. Like maybe
10
15 years.
10 years, 10, 15
which
years.
which Chris Farley had dated her, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Derek?
That's cool.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
the
She had to have been older than him, too. Had to have been, right?
I think they were close to the same age.
She just looks more mature. I don't know.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say, Andrew?
You know.
Why don't you clean that up?
Fill it in.
Wash your
But-
mouth out.
Okay, so she was born in 56. Chris was born in 64. So there's 8 years difference. Might as well just say like almost a decade. So it's really not that far.
It's pronounced decade.
Dickhead, which is what Rob Lowe is. So we
Big old decade.
fast forward to the next day. They have the wedding. A lot of nothing happens. We meet Michelle Brock, who is and she is a high level like accountant, I guess, or
She
I wouldn't
works in
say
operations
high
a
level,
lot.
but she's doing like shipping and stuff like
Yeah.
that. She probably works
She's
in
like part of, like, the
logistics.
logistics team.
yeah, she's responsible for the whole department to ship everything out. So she's very crucial to Callahan Auto, and
But they're high school buddies.
she's high school buddies with Tommy. And they're smitten a little bit and flirting,
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
They project what happens there almost instantly.
Yeah, but it's nothing like, it's pretty organic, I'll be honest. It's probably the part of the movie that's actually decently written is like their organic conversation. I thought the girl that played Michelle did like a pretty good job in her role.
She's fine.
Tommy's dad kicks the bucket during the wedding, which bad timing.
Right before their cover of that Ray Charles song that was just...
Yeah, it was
It's great.
so good.
Neither of them can sing. They butcher it, and then he dies. He croaks.
Yeah, I think that was like... I think that was just like the music gods coming down and smiting.
How dare you?
How dare you? Ray Charles is a legend.
He's a legend who's still alive at this point.
Yeah, and you're not going to be because of what we just heard.
When the dad died, how did you all react? I'm just curious.
I didn't really care.
Yeah, I didn't.
I kind of chuckled. That sounds awful, but I was like, oh, well, he died on his wedding day.
There was just no lead up to it. Like, yeah,
I
sure, that
remember
shit happens
he
in real
died
life.
when
but,
I was a kid. I remember the fact that his dad died. I remember it being a lot, quote, sadder when I was younger.
Because like you have more empathy. You're like, well, that can't be my dad.
But just him dying at his own wedding, it was just...
I'll be honest.
So
Yeah,
fucking
that I was shaking my head and rolling my eyes. But I will say this: after that, and it goes into like it does like a cool cutaway where they're all looking at him on the ground, and then it goes to them looking down at the grave and the funeral, and then they play the bagpipes.
I just thought it was a little too
And
melodramatic.
It was, but I actually thought it was okay. I didn't hate the death scene. It was they got the point across in a comedy movie that it was really sad.
I laughed at it. I'm sorry. It just didn't hit for me, but
It did. It was just a plot point. It was just a way to progress the
exactly.
plot.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
and
using his death to move the plot along.
and so we're already halfway through the plot, 10 minutes into the movie. Like
Essentially.
the movie is nothing. It is bare bones. To speed through another section of it, basically Tommy's taking over his dad's sales route to sell the new brake pads before the company has to sell to Zelensky.
But
My
he has
bad.
to give up his shares and his house for the bank to even entertain
Right.
the idea of repurchasing, the company or whatever.
And while he's out on the road selling, we find out, did you guys believe this? Rob Lowe is a dickhead.
What?
Rob Lowe is banging the mom here. and
He's banging his mom?
Yeah.
It's incest?
Wow.
They even make that joke.
They're
in there.
definitely related too, right?
Yeah,
Definitely not related.
They have to be. They find out that they're married and that they're just trying to extort the dad here, but he died before she got written into the will or her stocks became useful. So they have to sell the company to get money out of him.
Yes.
So they're driving the sale to Zelensky while Tommy's trying to stop the sale by getting enough money to pay off the loan from the brake pads. There you go. That's the entire plot.
That's
He
it.
goes around all these random people in Ohio and Illinois to asking them to buy these brake pads, and that makes himself look like a fucking fool half the time. And,
So he's on, and he takes Richard with him because
Yes.
Richard knows everything.
and they become, I guess, they become friends.
Somehow,
Well, I don't know how.
They just shit on each other.
Exactly.
The
And
whole
his
journey.
car gets destroyed.
Well, that's the
and-
thing is like that'll be the thing. We're going to write this, and then the car's going to be like their relationship. It gets broken, but they love it more. And like you can tell it, they keep on fixing it, even when it gets broken down. Fuck off. It was so dumb.
I don't
Like,
think it was that deep. I don't think they about.
They did not
I
even
think
think that.
I think
You-
the
you
writers
put
of the
that on
movie,
there.
if the writers of the movie are listening to this, I'm sure that they were like, "Oh, that's a good fucking idea. Next time I'm at a Comic-Con, I'll tell everybody that's what we wrote."
yeah, you better tell them that because goddamn it,
was a metaphor.
Jesus Christ. We're gonna make the funny part will be how he fucks up the car, but then they'll be friends.
It was just
So
How?
energy half the time.
Well,
and
and
their
on-
stupid little like roadside fight,
Oh my god! So on the road trip, let's go scene by scene.
I don't even remember honestly.
I'm talking about like just the car.
Okay.
So the car, the first thing they do is they
gas
stop at a
station?
gas station, and he just backs up into
with the
like
door open, hits like a pole, and it folds forward into the car.
Yeah, and he like tries to.
He fixes it.
Yeah, but like when I don't know if you guys noticed, he's like running his shoulder into this
He's
door.
using his full
and there's
body
like a
physical
huge,
comedy.
a huge dent. It looks like the car's been T-boned.
Yep.
And when Richard gets out, all he sees is a little speck on it. Like I think if you got out, you'd be yeah. And when you got out, that door is caved in.
Like
at that
280,
moment.
300-pound Chris Farley was literally just ramming his entire.
Did he weigh that
body in.
much?
He was probably close to 300.
Look it up.
Easily over 300, I think. Then the door falls off, and what'd you do? And,
I didn't know.
yeah, like plays that off like I didn't do anything. The next thing I remember is the deer destroying the fucking car, which was absolutely
Okay.
Suppose a dead buck.
Why would you pick up a dead animal that you just ran over and then put it in your fucking car? What's wrong? What? Who would do that?
because you take dead animals to the vet.
Yeah, to fix them. Unless you're like a fucking redneck. Sorry, rednecks.
Aren't you empathetic towards animals, Kyle?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I don't have any animals. I don't like animals. But also that buck was like a what? Looked like a 6-point buck.
It was close to. It was getting
5,
close to 10.
6 point buck?
Yeah, it was.
Like, it was a big guy. He probably weighed 150, 160 pounds. Who's going to put dead weight like that in the back of your really nice car? Why wouldn't you put it in the trunk? Or why? First of all, just don't pick it up in general.
Just leave it there.
Leave it there and drive around it and move on. Also, it didn't fuck up they killed the deer. It didn't fuck up the car at all. Could you go? What the fuck is happening?
Yeah, and the fact that the deer even revived itself after getting hit by a 1967 GTX.
A full day later, mind
Like
you.
those cars are
24
made
hours.
of full like
Steel,
metal.
There's no plastic composites. There's no,
No
like
carbon,
wrap your ass in
fiber.
fiberglass. It's hardcore
that
Detroit metal.
that deer,
Anyways,
that deer is dead.
Dumb as shit. The deer revives itself. It destroys the car. Takes like the hood off. Yada yada yada. Their sales campaign is going downhill. It's sucking.
Because he's just a really shitty salesman.
They both.
His go-to move before anything was he set a little model
toy
car
cars
on fire.
and someone's office on his fucking desk.
Cool.
Neato.
He
gang.
went to college for 7 years just to
told
light
me.
things on fire. David Spade said, "You mean just babbling out sentence fragments and setting things on fire?"
Yeah.
There was some like redeemable little David Spade quips in there.
A few of them.
But again, these happened when it was unscripted. It wasn't like
They're just shitting on each other. Essentially.
I don't think the script was terribly funny.
No.
So failure after failure after failure leads them to like basically go nuts, and then finally the hood of the car pops up. They almost die on the road.
They fought each other on the side of the road.
Yeah, then they show up on the side of the road. They have this big fight where David Spade absolutely fucking
the
clocks
shit.
Chris Farley's character with a 2x4.
Yeah.
That's not just a concussion. That is
That's
like
a broken cheekbone.
yeah,
like,
that's
It's a possible contusion and definitely like
Concussion, maybe,
concussion, some internal
Neck
swelling of the
trauma,
brain, the good stuff you
Yeah.
want. Encephalitis of the brain is awesome stuff.
So they show up at the diner trying to eat. I guess they're playing that stupid song in the background.
Which song was it?
It was
again?
the "I'm so sorry." They were playing it,
Yes.
and it was just too on the nose, like saying that they both were apologetic over their actions. And Chris Farley has a huge mark on his face from the 2x4 shot, and David Spade's like, "No, your face looks good." And then the waitress goes over, "Jesus Christ, what happened to
happened to
your
you?"
face?" And
Aw, man.
and then Andrew, do you want to tell us about the Renaissance moment?
If I can remember, I know that he wants to order some wings. Yeah.
He basically does the same shit he does in the guy's office minus the fire. He just rips a roll apart, talking about the roll being a cell and how he destroys the cell. So he's just throwing this roll and screaming in this diner. And
Woe is me. And
the waitress goes, "God, you're sick. I'll turn the fryers back on and get you some wings."
Just don't shoot us, please.
And David Spade goes, "That's it. What? How did you got those wings? You relaxed. You were able to sell.
I didn't care. I was just having fun and blah, 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 blah.
We have a pizza in the trunk."
Yeah.
Like, it's just, and it didn't make any sense. Like, there's no reason that should have worked.
No. It's doing the same thing that he was doing prior, which is yelling and getting all physical and doing
Being
the same thing.
emotional
Nothing-
and stupid.
Nothing changed.
Nothing changed. It's just the reaction of the characters changed. But I will say this. My favorite scene in the movie was the next scene where he gets his first sale. I think Chris Farley is riffing in this scene where he goes, why do they put a guarantee on the box then? And he's like, because they know they sold you a guaranteed piece of shit. And then he says, like, how do you know that the guarantee fairy's not a little crazy glue sniffer? Build model airplane, says the fairy, but we're not buying. Like, it's that whole scene. I could quote it still from my childhood.
He
but,
totally improvised that. He pulled
and
it out
it
of his
and
ass.
it's
And it works.
Yeah, I was fucking laughing. I was like, it worked really well.
He just goes, okay, I'll buy from you.
That's it.
And then they go on this tear.
They start hitting everyone.
Yeah, they start selling left and right. They get to their brake pad goal, and then Rob Lowe's like, no. So Rob Lowe.
So what's his genius idea?
It goes into the computers and then deletes where they're
Changes
supposed to
and
go.
alters
Changes
dates
the
and
dates.
orders and numbers, and it fucks everything up.
It was
And
really simple for him to do that, too.
Yeah.
He just walked right on in. There was no password.
Nothing.
It wasn't even in a program. It was just like, I don't even know if she was the one shipping shit to anyone, because there's no way she was doing it with that program.
No way.
And then, so he changes everything. The orders get messed up. Half of them get canceled. Looks like they're going to have to sell the company to Zelensky, played by
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd. But Tommy gets the bright idea. He's a nice guy. Let's go talk to him. He won't buy our company and make a lot of money. So they're on the road to Chicago.
Chicago.
Oh, yeah, Chicago.
Chicago.
So they're-
Chicago.
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 No
My
shit.
Chicago.
It's a hard ch. Chicago.
They're on their way to talk to Zelensky and try to stop the sale. And then what do they see? But Rob Lowe and his
Oh,
mom
that's right.
In the boardroom.
in the boardroom. They beat him to it. So now he's got to devise a plan.
But he doesn't even know it yet, right?
Yeah,
No, he doesn't know.
this is how he finds out that he's being conned.
Michelle, they go back down from whatever building they're in. Michelle runs out of a taxi, like waving papers. She's like, wait, I have his police records.
Yeah.
Like, literally just like that. And
Which any company could have ran those too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, like her brother was a police officer, and she finds out that they're married. They're married. That's a government document. Like,
We don't look into these things in
so
midnight.
in any major cell, they pull that shit.
No.
But they didn't here. So,
Nope.
so now they have to strap a bunch of road flares to Tommy and
to
get
make it look like a suicide
to
bomb.
make it look like a suicide, so they
vest.
could get back into the boardroom and convince Zelensky to buy $500,000 worth of brake pads.
Don't they just blackmail him over television?
but
They
he's
just
just
get a
like-
television.
It's on live television too, because
But
those newspapers.
we're gonna gloss over the most funniest part that I thought was actually genuinely funny when he goes in. He's like, "All right, you check over there. I'm gonna check the bank." And he goes over to the bank, and what does he do? He goes over and
Listen
says,
up, everybody.
Hey, everybody, listen up. This is only going to take a minute. And there he goes, oh, fuck. And they drop down to the ground, and the security officers roll their revolvers over to him, and he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah,
And
he
did
did.
that.
He just like and then
He tiptoes his way out.
Yeah. I thought that was genuinely,
and they didn't
that was
like
a good scene.
they didn't tackle him and try to take him to jail at that
No,
point.
they
but
just gave up.
But I do love the news is interviewing the police officer, and he's like, and after he came out of the shadows and hit me in the head
Yeah.
With a hammer.
many times, I had to give him my gun. I have kids.
That was great. There is some very small moments in this movie that I was like, okay, this will make it worthwhile to watch once.
Yeah.
Because it's funny. I mean, I think that's
That is funny.
Yeah.
But there weren't enough of
Not
those
at all.
moments.
yeah, because
And they weren't even like main focal
not
points.
at all.
It
They
was
were
little
just
sides.
Yeah, they're little like vignettes of like not really.
SNL skits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I thought that was generally one of the funniest parts. Also, so many federal crimes were
Being
committed.
committed and
even-
just looked over.
Looked
just
and glossed over.
He gets up to the boardroom. He has the flares wrapped around his stomach. He's got newspaper reporters, or camera reporters, I should say, interviewing him while he's talking to Zelensky. He gets Zelensky to sign the document worth of $500,000 of brake pads. And then it's announced that his stepmom or whatever is married to Rob Lowe's character. So guess what? All of their shares go back to Tommy because their marriage is her marriage to her dad is now officially annulled, and he gets to take back the company.
Yeah, they totally planned that, Andrew, before they did that. So.
Oh well, yeah,
Right?
of course.
Oh wait, no, that's right. They didn't fucking do that. This was all just happenstance.
Yes,
at the very
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I love because before that, when they're blackmailing Zelensky and all this is on the news to buy the brake pads too. You're talking about the vignettes. I want to go back to this one. I do love they go back to where the guy that made the first that he sold the first set of brake pads to is on the couch, and his wife's reading the paper and she's like, "Hey, honey, look at this crazy man trying to blow up the building in Chicago." "Oh, yeah, I buy brake pads from him. I thought we were watching cartoons." And he just turns it to Looney Tunes. Yeah.
He doesn't even doesn't even hesitate. Just changes the channel right away.
And I was like, that man is my spirit animal. Like,
Look, they're gonna bomb the United States. What about what's on?
I thought we were watching Rick and Morty.
Yeah, let's turn on some good stuff. Shut the fuck up.
Rob Lowe immediately tries to run for the exit and gets his... I don't even know how to describe it. He gets hit by a car that they're testing brakes on.
He falls on it or whatever. And
thrown through the air.
And then
lands into a seat.
Which then weight is dropped down on
they're
his
testing
nether regions.
They do that in a much more efficient way than dropping a fucking sandbag on the fucking
20, 30 pound sandbag.
Yeah,
they're
that's not really how they do it, but like it makes sense. But like how that happened, also, if that was 30 pounds, they would have crushed his nuts. They would not.
did.
I mean, it did.
And he went.
But then what happens after that? He's like writhing in pain, looking like a moron, and then Zelensky starts to hit on.
Well, yeah, they take Rob Lowe's character to jail, and
That's right,
I guess
he's
his name was
arrested.
Paul or whatever. Doesn't matter. They take him to jail, and then his wife just goes on a date with Zelensky. She's part of this. She's a con artist too. She's got to go to jail. She can't just jump from one man to another and then get away with it.
But hey, Tommy was able to walk away from that terroristic threatening scotch-free and go back to running Callahan Auto.
Literally, it ends with Rob Lowe's nuts being crushed. Zelensky being like, "You got one over on me, kid, and it won't happen again." And he walks out.
You meddling kids.
Yeah, he's like walks out of the building with his wife and goes like to an expensive dinner. Michelle kisses Tommy in a scene that looked very awkward. They just flash forward there. He's at Callahan Auto. "Now you're new president and CEO of Callahan Auto, Tommy." And everyone's like clapping. Even the people that hated him are clapping now.
Because he sold them $500,000.
He sold the $500,000, got his stock,
and
and got his stock back.
Yeah.
And so now the company is in a lot of danger if that's your CEO and president.
He had his epiphany. He had his nirvana. He's settled.
He didn't change his ways at all, but he figured out how to channel them to something that was haphazardly put together at the very end of the movie that saved the company in this one circumstance, but has nothing to do with their forward trajectory as a company or how they're going to make money in the future or pay everybody's pensions when they're retired.
But they're going to have an employee night at a carnival.
That's what we need to spend money on. Going to Vegas.
Oh, it cuts so deep. So, and that wraps it about up. He ends up on a dinghy. Don't quit playing with your dinghy. There was, I do as this movie wraps up, I do want to notate how many masturbation jokes we got.
Oh my god! And we had a completely illegal scene of somebody just watching. Well, also two illegal things happening in one scene where somebody undresses themselves in a hotel pool to skinny dip.
While like David Spade's character was just being a fucking creep. So
unzipping
creepy.
his pants.
Unzipped his pants and was jerking
while
it.
standing there looking out the hotel room window.
And then Tommy shows back up and just makes nothing but masturbation jokes for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like beats you over the head with it too. It's like, what's your favorite Little Rascal? Is it Alfalfa or is it Spanky?
Yeah, who's your favorite baseball team? The Yankees.
Yeah, it's like okay, we get it. He was jerking it to a woman swimming.
He was so ashamed of it too. If I got caught, I'd be like, "Yep, so sorry, so what? It happens."
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It's natural.
I mean, she's
not watching somebody undress. Also, not
No,
undressing
but
yourself.
and I never
Correct.
understood why she's looking around like, I hope no one's watching. It's like you're in the middle of the pool in this
public hotel.
Somebody who's gonna do that is just gonna do that and be like, "Oh fuck yeah!"
There's like 250 rooms, all of them looking down at the pool. Like somebody saw you. Like
So dumb.
yeah, so it's like
Stupid.
Then you have the one where David Spade comes and knocks on the hotel to tell him about the final say. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, want me to jerk you off? And I was like, okay, there's another one. And then there's 2 instances where Chris Farley's he's in a sailboat with no wind.
He also can't explain why the sail needs wind. He's like,
Yeah.
it needs wind to make the
wind go.
Did you all notice when they panned away that the back end of the boat was like really dipping into the water?
Another fat joke.
Yeah, it was
How many of those did we have in this movie?
As many as Chris Farley hitting his head onto a piece of glass or a piece of something. It had to numerous and
Running into a door or some stupid
unneeded
shit.
as well.
I understand why now that Chris Farley had the issues that he had. This movie is just a giant fat joke and masturbation joke, and
Which
Chris
were not
Farley
funny.
in a nutshell.
which is, and especially now, like it's even
absolutely.
less funny now. And this movie made me sad too, because I watched the documentary. I went in with that knowledge, knowing, and I know that he's going through this movie, doing this role, and suffering through depression. He's having to make all these fat jokes.
Yeah. So at that point, I can't get skinny or I can't lose weight now because if I lose the weight, am I not funny anymore?
Yeah.
Which, no, he would have still been funny. In fact, he probably would have found something funnier. And I also, he touched into the darker side of himself that I thought would have been, had he lived, would have been something really funny to tap into, or possibly even a good actor in there too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he could have channeled something a little more serious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can kind of see
more
some of the
visceral.
scenes in there.
For sure.
And when he was self-loathing and just self-deprecating, you can taste it. You can see where he was gonna go, which is really sad.
It's a classic depressed clown.
Yeah.
And that wraps up Tommy Boy. If it sounded like it was nothing, it really, truly was. There's not the jokes are not as memorable.
It's like cotton candy. When you're at a ball game and you're a child, you're like, I want the fucking cotton candy. And you eat that cotton candy in 3 minutes and you're really fucking hungry and your stomach hurts. That's what I felt like after watching this movie. It looks good on the outside.
There's not much
There's
to
not.
it.
There's no
It's a
substance.
little superficial.
You
Yeah.
put a little water on it and it just melts away.
This, to me, this is the bag of cotton candy at the baseball game that's been sitting there for a long time, and the sun's drenched on it, so it's like the bag looks a little pale and kind of yellowy. And so it didn't even look good on the outside, but you're like, maybe the contents on the inside are still good. And then you eat the contents, and it's just like, it's now the sugar is so solidified, it doesn't even melt in your mouth.
Like rock
anymore.
candy.
Yeah, it's not even candy. It's just like rocks.
Disappointment.
While we think of our ratings, Kyle, did Tommy Boy hold up?
No. I would not watch that again. And as a child, the things I found funny were not funny now. And knowing the backstory about Chris Farley and what he went through, and also the jokes that were not well placed were overshadowed by off-scripted moments between, with the relationship between David Spade and Chris Farley, or just with themselves. That really just made me think, why the fuck would you write this movie? You could have just had them talk the whole time with each other. And it did not hold up well. Wouldn't watch it again. Would not recommend to watch.
Andrew, what do you think?
Resounding no. I watched it last night. It's been a long time, and I was hoping to enjoy it. But with a movie like this, I'm supposed to laugh. I hardly laughed at all. It just was not funny. It was not funny. It tried too hard. I didn't enjoy it. As simple as that. It wasn't fucking funny.
How many times did you laugh out loud, do you think?
Maybe once.
Okay.
Maybe once.
What
And
about-
honestly, one of the more visceral laughs was when the dad died at the funeral. And
Which
I'm
was not supposed to
laugh
be.
at that.
What about you,
The
Chase?
one scene. There were 3 or 4, but
But this is something from your childhood that you probably have memories attached to.
yes, I enjoyed the viewing as a trip down memory lane. And this is what I told you. This is what this podcast is for.
Yeah.
This is a movie I haven't seen since I was a kid. I watched it a shit ton when I was a kid. I still could quote. I rattled off that quote earlier. I can quote the whole movie and remember it fondly. And I watched it and I maybe laughed 3 or 4 times. And they were at scenes I didn't laugh at when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I guess I want to touch on the famous scene, the fat guy in a little coat scene. A lot of people quoted it in middle school and elementary school. A lot of people talk about it. It's been in TV shows, other places. I like that it was written by David Spade and Chris Farley when they shared a writer's room in SNL. David Spade would sit there and try to write, and Chris Farley would be like, hey, David, I came up with something else. And he's like, if you're wearing my coat again, I'm tired of the fat guy little coat thing. Mm-hmm. And Chris would be like, no, it's something entirely different, something brand new. And David Spade would look over at him and he would say, fat guy in a little coat, don't give up on it. Like, and I love that story from David Spade, but that kind of joke summarizes this movie. It's not funny. Looking at it with a magnifying glass over Chris Farley's career and his character and his personality, I think it hits a lot harder.
It does not age
and
well in that sense.
and it just makes me sad because that was a comedian that could have been a lot more that we lost too early. Unfortunately, we lost Phil Hartman around the same time.
Oh, God, that one was even...
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's worse, but like just how it happened.
Right. So it just reminds me of the tragedy, and it makes me just want to watch SNL. I started watching. I was like, I just want to watch old SNL.
I want to go back and watch the Van Down by the River sketch, and
or
the Bears, and all the shit we talked about.
And go down memory lane. This is an hour and 37 minutes that could be condensed into a 10-minute sketch.
Absolutely.
And to me, it didn't hold up. It didn't hold up at all. And
Sad.
what about some ratings now?
So I've got one. I'm going to give it a 4.8 out of 10.
Chase, you go next.
I think with the nostalgia carrying it and like a couple of chuckles here or there, and it wasn't offensively long, I think I would do like a 5.7.
Okay.
That to me, that's just average to below average.
My rating's a little cold. I didn't tie any nostalgia back to it. It's literally just how I felt after I watched that movie.
And your rating's fair. If I'd gone in there clean, I probably would have given it lower. Not Batman and Robin low, but lower.
No.
Yeah.
Do you usually go in dirty?
Very.
Wow.
Kyle, it's yours.
I'm completely apathetic towards this movie to the point where I'm having to think hard about the score I'd give it because like it just didn't do anything, and I have no emotional connection to it. Like maybe like a 4.3 out of 10. Yeah. Like it's just like
Again,
it's so meh.
That's it. Those are both of like very fair scores. I think the 5.7 just comes from my nostalgia.
It's fair.
And being able to like quote some of the lines with it.
It's a very quotable movie for sure.
And it was that was a lot of fun for me just to see what my memory could pull out. But again, if I didn't have any attachment to this movie like I did, it would definitely be below 5. I'm like average to like had a good time, but if I watched it a second time, it's definitely going down.
All right, so you want the IMDb?
What do you think it is, Chase?
I've already looked at it, obviously. I knew what it was before I came into this, but...
Is it surprising? Are we going to be shocked at it?
Do you really not know what it is?
No, I don't.
No,
don't
I think you're going to be surprised.
Okay.
I think you're going to be like shocked.
Is it high sixes?
I was going to say 6.7 out of 10.
Yeah, that would shock me.
It's higher.
Oh my god!
Get out of here.
No.
7.3 out of
It
10.
is 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which I think is a fucking crime against humanity.
What is it on Rotten Tomatoes?
Okay, so you have your audience score, which is 90%.
Well, of course, because it's a cult classic.
But then the tomato meter is 40%.
There you go. That's a little
that's
bit more
accurate.
realistic.
That's
accurate.
that's one where we actually recommend the Rotten Tomatoes rating.
Yeah.
I mean, like a 7.1 out of
No
10.
fucking way, because I looked at that before I watched it, which I shouldn't have done.
Oh, I wonder if that's like
I
because
shouldn't have.
because he died right after this movie happened, and it's like
There-
one of the
there's
last movies he
definitely-
did.
You
Second
know,
last
I don't
movie
want to
he
get into that, but you might be into something.
This is a movie fueled by nostalgia. That's what we do here, and we.
But again, separate that nostalgia. Don't think about anything else but the movie, and it's a steaming pile of...
Dog shit. So, well, that's it, everybody. We just reached into your brain, found Tommy Boy in the movie bank of your past, pulled it out, realized, it doesn't hold up. So we're going to put it right back into your nostalgia.
did. Yeah, just burn it.
Just burn it.
Yeah, erase it.
And we'll see you next time.